my presentation for conflict resolution, touching on the big 5 fights that happen most between couples and building a framework on how we're going to resolve a lot of the issues. This session is focused more on tackling a lot of the stuff that's happening inside of us as opposed to outside for the first session. And this builds a ground for having a framework for our minds as opposed to giving you a bunch of skills, but your mind isn't quite adapted to where it needs to be to use them. And I can explain that more later on. And so when we look at this presentation, it's coming based off the book. This particular presentation is focused on power and control for relationships, the need for autonomy versus, having control over somebody. And we look at self-awareness and how we're, moving through that. We look at imitation and influence. We look at conflict resolution, or fairness and equality, or equity, sorry. And we look at control. And so when we have, when we address the big 5 conflicts, the major things in relationships, like sex and money, in-laws or domestic relationships, like, what's going on at home, and children. And when we have these conflicts, yes, the stakes are high, they matter. And, we look at what these things have in common. What is the frustration? Where's that coming from? And we look at how we differ in each of us, how we handle conflicts. But what's necessary here is bounty, plentiful creation, compromise, and sacrifice that is required for resolving a lot of the conflicts. So when we look at the need for autonomy, the need for, space, the need for agency, the need for agency without dominion, we want to look at somebody who can be in a relationship without the need for being domineering over their partner, being overzealous, whatever that may be for you. And again, we're looking at what's on the inside of us as opposed to the outside right now. And this is touching on the core. And if you nail this, then you'll be better for your conflicts. And so we have a bit of a interactive portion. Where there's force, there is resistance. So let's be honest. In what ways have we gone about controlling our partner, either, in recent or in the past? Or in what ways have our partners gone about necessarily controlling us in a way, if they have? And so there are a few questions of how we can do that. And this is where I kind of give it to you guys for a little bit too. How do I get my partner to do, behave, and think the way I want? What do I want to change about my partner? In what ways am I trying to change my partner? What have I done to change my partner's emotions, political beliefs, lifestyle, life perspective for my benefit? And this is coming off a little strong, but it's looking at what ways that we ourselves and our past relationships, giving an honest look, how have we attempted or tried to change our partners, if we have? So I'll give you guys the floor a little bit. In what ways have you found that you might have tried to change your partners? And forgive my voice, I'm getting over a cold. The symptoms are gone, but my throat is still kind of, my voice is not there yet.
Like, I'm like a homebody a lot of times, so I'll try to get like my partner, I guess, like to stay home sometimes and not be outside all the time.
Yeah. Thank you for your honesty. I appreciate it. It takes a lot to even do that. Out the gate, I'm telling you guys to admit your faults, and it's kind of, I set it up like this on purpose. So anybody else, in what ways have you tried to change your partner and the way they behave, the way they think? In what ways have you tried to, shift their worldview, change their emotions, lifestyle for your benefit? And at the bottom, we got some examples. Oh, yeah.
Would it be past partners? Because I don't have anyone right now, but...
Past partners.
Okay, so for me, ways that I tried to was by, talking to them, you know, like constantly, like talking to them about things that concern me,
Yep.
that I've seen them doing. And it was a constant thing. So it was kind of irritating because I didn't see the change. You know, like basically, I felt like I was their mother in a way.
Yeah.
Always like either trying to talk to them about it or, you know, not yelling, but like just trying to talk, you know, trying to over explain myself. So
Okay. I like that. Yeah, we when we find differences between us and our partner, we tend to want to like mold them a little bit into what we want. And so we do different things, such as gaslighting, insults. We could be dismissive. We could be little. Not that you guys are doing this, but these are some examples. There's coercion through money or sex. There's managing finances. If there's one partner who's got the pull on the money, then that could be a way where people are a little more controlling. They bring up family members as a way to kind of either belittle or try to uplift in persuasion. People bring up the past. There's deceit, where people lie and so on and so forth. The withdrawal affection. Like, if you're not going to do this, no hugs or kisses for the rest of the week. That type of energy. And so when we look at, you know, confrontation, it's happening. Now, I want you to look at how you are approaching it. Who are you imitating if you are? Do we sense that our mothers are coming out, our fathers are coming out? Are we sensing that our best friend, the way they handle stuff, is that coming out? Are you imitating the things that hurt you in the past? And we might have to some extent. But in what ways have you imitated and it caused you some issues? These questions are pretty deep. It requires you to think a little bit. What are you?
are we able to answer?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You just
Okay,
speak
sorry,
out.
my kids are in the background, so excuse me. But for me, I see my mom come out a lot. Because my mom was always the person that tried to get my dad to like do things, you know, and so I felt like she was coming out a lot through me, and because I can see her as I'm talking, and I'm like, oh my god, like I sound like my mom, you know. Um, and then in instances, I would sound like my dad too, because my dad, he, um, yes, my dad, he was like the one that would get frustrated after a while.
Yeah.
So I kind of was like him too. Like after like a while, I would get like frustrated or like I would curse or like, you know, I would curse my point across, um, or try to defend myself with, you know, the best way that I could. Um, I would have to say it was between them two because they fussed a lot when I was younger. Like
Yeah.
they fussed a lot, like every day. I don't remember a day when it was not fussing, and if it wasn't, it maybe was on a Sunday. I don't know, but
Yeah.
so it was more of my mom. Like I can see her through me a lot, over the last couple of years. So yeah, I would say.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. Anybody else? Who do you imitate? And are you imitating the very things that hurt you? Because it's often the case that, like, yes, you got couples issues. Yes, there's stuff that's happening now, but we often pick up things from the past and we subconsciously bring those things to the present, especially when we're stressed, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, at times I yell, you know, like everybody yells, I guess. But,
Yeah.
you know, my parents, obviously, I guess the relationship look at this quickest. And then sometimes during conflict, I just go quiet too. Like I don't know, I just stop talking. So that's like something I do. I don't know. I guess it's a bad thing. Sometimes I have to stop talking because I don't want to just keep arguing, or I don't want to say something that's going to be like used against me, or like it's just going to make the situation worse. So sometimes I think it's just best to stop talking and like if I'm just being misunderstood or something, or they just aren't in the place to like receive what I'm saying, like I just stop talking. But what happened? My partner, they was talking about joining the military, and like I just asked her, like I'm like, are you sure you want to do this? I'm like, asked her, did she pray about it? And she was like, I sound like her mom. So like, whenever I'm making a big decision, people ask me like, did I pray about it? But I don't know if that's like a bad thing, but yeah, that's something I did too.
So she brought up that you sound like her mom or your mom.
Yeah, her mom.
Okay. Yeah, that's one of the controlling things where you break up family. So that's an example of it. And so I'm gonna move forward a little bit. I thank you for sharing. We all witnessed great couples we admired, and we want to have something like that. And now, we saw that as a standard what this couple did. Now I want to touch on what did they do? What worked for that couple? What works for that standard? How they approach the problem. All right, do you have any examples for that? We want to look at how some people do change, what helps, they perceive change. Some people repeat what they experienced. So and so did this growing up. All I know how to do is this. I'm going to copy that. And it's not necessarily conscious. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it's just unconscious. They live out the way that they have been brought up. Some people, do a 180. They do a complete 180 turn. I grew up angry. Now I just don't do anger. Which, okay, some people it might work, but most of the time it creates other problems. Such as if I'm not angry, well, then I'm sad. You're not really resolving the issue. You're just trying to negate something so that it doesn't happen anymore. But then it pervades other areas. What do we want to do? We want to bring in integration. We understand the past, but we're creating a better self for our relationships in the present and in the future. We understand the past, and we're creating better self for our relationships now and in the future. And so we look at destructive patterns with control in our relationships, mutual coercion, exert effort to change the partner. We may begin as direct requests, gentle persuasions, later becoming criticizing, as guilt and yelling and so on and so forth. Wife may say to the husband, I really think you should get a job. I think that can really help. Then it turns into, you're so lazy you don't want to apply to any jobs. Oh my goodness, you're terrible. The change is trying to help this partner get another job so that there's more income for the house or whatever it is. Different careers, so there's less stress. So I want you guys to kind of build that framework of control in your mind and how you either try to change your partners or somebody else has tried to change you. And so I want you guys to tell me your strengths. What are you strong at? What is your superpower? What do you do better than anybody else? What is your gift? What are your good qualities?
I think I'm pretty good at I'm good at solving problems. I'm good at overcoming things, finding a way out. I would say problem solver.
No, you're good.
Creative, yeah. So
You're good. That's a common answer, actually. Not a lot of people think about that, but that's all right. But I guess it gives us some time to think about that. Some people say compassion. Some people, really caring and loving towards others. Some people, what's another common one? Good at sports, depending on who you're talking to.
Mine is my empathy.
Absolutely. I love it. What else? What else?
I feel like I'm a passionate person and very understanding of others.
Okay. Anybody in here?
I would say work ethic.
Work ethic.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
something I just was I see my mom just constantly doing through the years, just work, and I just kind of just took that upon myself and applied it to everything, and that definitely helped me.
Thank you for sharing. Contradictions. This is kind of like a throw-in one, but it's good to kind of like conceive of too. We like to think of ourselves as good, this person who's caring, this person who's like, problem solver and all this stuff. As you are, absolutely correct. At times, when we're in conflict, when there are problems, in what ways do we go against that grain of our self-image? In what ways do you go against that grain of our self-image? And so when we say empathy, not calling anybody out, this is just me speaking in general. When we say empathy, are you empathetic when conflict happens? You're both fired up. Is empathy still there? Is problem solving still there? Is being a caring person still there? Do you maintain the good parts of yourself even when in the heat of the moment? Yep. Okay, I'm going to move on. So, when we look at core negative image, in the moment of conflict with the partner, you're fighting against that, core negative image of self and others. Of self, do I sound like this right now? Am I afraid of becoming, when have I felt this way before? When we look at the partner, who is your partner reminding you of right now? Who am I afraid of my partner, who's that becoming? Am I relating to my partner in the way I used to? All that. And so we look at core negative image. I want us to examine the ways in which, we talked about before, I sound like mom, I sound like dad, or, in what ways are these negative aspects of our previous interactions coming about? Who do we sound like? Who am I kind of becoming in this moment? It's like, ooh, I really sound like, my grandparents when they were yelling at me or whatever. When I get this way, I felt this way. So I really want you guys to dig into that. So we look at triggers. And this is a way of kind of, decisions are the bigger, it's the bigger thing when it comes to control and power. And we have to know our part, and we have to know when to kind of back off and put our foot on the gas on other times. So we have ships have one captain. It is better to have one decision maker. And what that can mean is, it's like sometimes you need one person to just do it without having two people, working at the same time for a common goal, but it's causing some issues there. It's a side effect of soul-to-soul relationships. It's going to happen. It is what it is. Expertise problem. Both people specialize in something, but they have to find their perspective place. Defer to such and such based on what is, what we're strong in. Watch for how partners pull rank. And so, I'm not good at planning trips, and that's not my thing. It's not my thing at all. So I'm gonna let my partner do that work. When it comes to financing and budgeting, I feel like I'm strong in that. I can take the lead in that. Now, what does it look like when two people are kind of like trying to plan a trip at once, at the same time? They're both pulling rank. I want to go here. We should do this. Well, I want to try this. I haven't done this before. And they just can't agree on something. They're butting heads. Insults are coming, all this other stuff. And it happens all the time. There's two top dogs in one space, or perceived top dogs to themselves. And they feel like kind of going at it to figure out who's going to have their choices accommodated for. And so we want to watch this concept when it comes to control and so on. Who's kind of had these situations? Go ahead.
I was going to say, what do you say to the people who are in relationships, places where there's dominant personalities, but like what would you say? Because a lot of people, they be in situations where one person essentially is just controlling everything and not really being a leader. What do you say is like the best way to like go about things? Is it to just defer? Is it to be like, all right, you just make all the calls? Like, what do you say to the people and how to handle those type of situations?
It's a really good question. When it comes to people who are very like domineering and need to be like this front seat driver, I take this from a little bit of Taekwondo and how we kind of run things. You know, that's good, but can we incorporate this? What do you think about this? And this whole session, and I'm going to get into that, is more building a cooperative mind. They're making a decision, but you can guide yourself into being in a spot where you can help them kind of look at things a little different. What do you think of this? You know, what if we tried this? And give good reasons. And if they're just like, you know, hell or high water with that stuff, you know, we still need that cooperative mind, and we'll get into that. And so, relational distress. Distress is not caused by differences or agreements with a particular conflict. Those are normal and inevitable. It'll happen. But distress is caused by the destructive ways that some couples respond to incompatibilities. It's not that disagreements or differences are necessarily the cause. We have disagreements with anybody. You know, what is really the problem is like, you know, those hell or high water guys. It's my way or the highway. Rigid, stiff, they don't want to change anything. Sometimes they're the problem. Sometimes it's, you know, you got the firecrackers too who, you know, you don't like my idea. Not necessarily the difference, but not liking something that they propose. That's a trigger for some people. You know, where are the incompatibilities? Can we understand where we're kind of like coming from when it comes to, you know, approaching those things? So we have a conflict resolution. This comes from don't be a cactus. We look at selfishness. To only consider yourself regarding the consequences. Being spiteful. We do things to the detriment of both parties. Ego. My way or the highway, I'm the guy. Do as I say. It's kind of a thing. Pride. Who better than me to make this decision? You know, like why anybody else? I can do it. And we come to a little bit of what's your perspective at that point? You know, what is you got a conflict, and how do you respond? Is it through fear and pain? Is it through love and prosperity? So when we're in the mix of things, we can fall into selfishness. It's like when making a decision or when, you know, talking about an issue, we can come to think about our concerns just about, you know, it's the only thing that we're worried about. What about me, me? What about the accommodation of your partner, the other person? Some of us might have our heads boosted up. Some of us might have our heads boosted up. And we're thinking like, well, I'm the one that matters. I'm the breadwinner, or this and that. I did this, and you know, so on and so forth. That kind of follows ego as well. Or spite, where, you know what? Forget it. We're both going down. We can't come to a resolution. It's over. These tend to be the fear and the pain as opposed to love and prosperity. And what is love and prosperity? Love and prosperity is what we're about to talk about. So we talk about the equity approach. Everyone gets what they need as conflict arises. Things are not always simple. You know, it doesn't mean giving, but seeking mutual respect, understanding, and compliance. What this requires of us is emitting the better qualities we know we have. It is not to say be a doormat or a pushover. This is where we challenge old ways of thinking and behaving. We say we're empathetic. can we maintain that when conflict arises? Not calling anybody out, just, to give an example. We say we're compassionate. Can we still admit that when we're still in the mix? And it's hard to keep the better qualities of us when we're heightened. We're not thinking straight when we're angry. We're not thinking the best when we're sad. We're not as logical when, emotions are a little high. And so that's why we talked about over in October, the emotion regulation, understanding ourselves and so on. It's giving mutual respect, understanding, and seeking compliance. And I'm not saying that you got to be a pushover, because I think that's the other end of it that some people perceive. Like if this person's, firing shots at me, and I'm being the respectful, understanding, and compliant person, then I need to fight back. Is that really the way to go? And so we might have to challenge the ways of thinking of, I'm a doormat because I let this slide. I'm a pushover because somebody did this and I didn't say this in that moment or do this in the other moment. Emitting the better qualities, the ones we know we have. Cooperative mind. When equity is lacking, the cooperative mind is necessary. Seek cooperation on both sides so that there is no side. People can differ on views while being on the same team. What is not cooperative? Trying to one-up somebody, trying to outsmart somebody, being boastful, getting into shouting matches, aggressive gestures, or tense proximity. Those like get in your face kind of things going on. Now, if people aren't we got the person who's like wanting to make all the decisions and be that guy or gal, we got to employ the cooperative mind. All right, how can we go from you're on this end, I'm on this end of the decision, or whatever the problem is? How can we still be on the same team regardless of different viewpoints? If we got to agree to disagree, but we still get to some common goal that's reasonable for both people, we got to do that. But where things fall apart is when we try to be this person who's like, gotcha. Look at me, I got this and that for you to challenge whatever I got to say. I'm going to get louder than you to make sure that you hear what I'm saying, and I'm the guy. I'm the boss. Or some people, all they've learned was intimidation. So we got to look at where these aggressive gestures are coming from. Are they defensive mechanisms? Are they a tool to get people what people want? Are they, tense proximity? What is the problem? How do they separate and become extreme? When do you know when to walk away? So some people have, it depends on the, defensive mechanism. So we call like survival strategies. What we call survival strategies is what you're talking about. You walk away when you feel like it's too much. Get a breather, reassess, evaluate the situation, come back when you're calm. When you're both calm, that's a really good way to approach it. You walk away when you feel like, it's becoming a bit much and those poor qualities we have are starting to surface versus the better qualities we have. Come back when you're calm. Evaluate, think about ways you can adjust the path forward to where you're on the same side. Respect, understanding, compliance, some sacrifice that need to be made, whatever that is. But again, we're not outsmarting, being boastful, aggression, shouting matches. But when two people are on the same page of having that cooperative mind, having the equity in the relationship, we get farther away from the need to separate. But we got to acknowledge where that need to get away comes from. Why is that the case? Continuously ask yourself why once you get that answer. Walking away because I'm getting a little hot. Why? Well, because this happened. Why is that causing you? And then, this emotion comes up. Why? Well, this reminds me of this. Why? Keep asking yourself why. And then we get closer to emotion integration, understanding why we get to a point where we get to. Okay, back to you. So what is the problem? Split ambivalence. Two truths can coexist, and one person says this, another person says that. You both are trying to get to a point where you gotta, resolve an issue, make a decision, and you both can be right. But at the same time, two people might feel like they need to kind of have the final say. Can we see where we both are, right in our own way from different perspectives? That whole 6 and the 9 sort of, flip. And the trap happens where? My way is better, even though they both know in calm circumstances that they're both right. Conflict is happening, your kind of emotions are heightened. And this is where the kind of like me comes in, the selfishness, so when we look at, challenges for both people, you look for the third path. One person has this idea, the other person has this idea. What exactly is that space in between where you guys can meet? When we're employing the cooperative mind, we're trying to be on the same side. We're trying to get away from red, blue, this team, that team. Where's the third path for you guys? Where can you both come on an agreement and build upon that? And sometimes we don't like differences as much as we think we do, as much as we say we do, You ever come across those people who are like, I accept everybody and this and that? They meet an opposing viewpoint, which may be extreme or maybe not extreme. And they're like, no, I hate that. I can't talk to them. I can't be around them. They're this and that and all this stuff. We find that we're a little less accepting of differences, different, opposing viewpoints and so on. Accept partners as they are, rather than who and how you want them to be. The flip side of that is dismissing the partner and trying to change them because you don't accept how they are. And that's where some of the control and power issues come.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to, find a balance of not trying to change my partner, or for my benefit at least.
Yeah.
But I do I'm big on personal growth for myself. And I want the person I'm with to, have a mindset, that same mindset of personal growth, and not think that they're perfect or they don't need to work on things. So, but I'm also trying to accept people as they are. But it comes to a point in time, it's like, hey, if this is who you are, do I stay? So I'm trying to find that balance of what can I accept, what can I change, and what is just too much to do.
That's a very good take. Thank you for sharing. I My thing about that is we have to question ourselves on where that desire for them to change is coming from. I'm not calling you out, not putting you on the spot, but this is just some more thought for what this dialogue is about. Is our desire for them to change something for them, or is it more for us? Even if it's not directly for us. So if I take an example, I don't even know if this is a good one. Brushing teeth at night. Just throwing it out there. You want your partner to start brushing their teeth at night. Is it because you don't want to smell the bad breath? Is it because you want them to have better hygiene and health and everything else? Who is it really about when we want our partners to change? And if it is for them, Are we truly accepting if they don't want to do that? How accepting are we if they reject our proposal for brushing their teeth at night? And then you get closer to the answer of like, who's this really for? Who's it really about? But that's the game we're in. That's the battle where we got to kind of adjust and rewire our brains.
Can I say something? That's
Yep.
really good. I was sitting over here laughing at that because in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, how can I get this person to brush their teeth?
Yeah.
You know, like they're saying no, like, okay, well, what other ways can I come as the problem solver that I am? I'm like, okay, what other ways can I come up to get this person to brush their teeth? But it was just funny because that made me think about maybe that's just a me thing.
No, yeah, that's a way where we kind of. It's a simple example, but it touches on like when we talk about the problems that we have with our partner. It's going back to what he was kind of talking about and what I was trying to rebuttal with and hit on. Not necessarily rebuttal, but it's like yes, we want them to do this. It can benefit them. Is that more for us or them? Okay, we could say it's for them. If they don't do it, then who is it really for after that? After that question, who is it really for? Can you accept that out of that person? I'm not going to brush at night. And if you can't accept it, what does that say about you? Okay, so exercise for self-awareness. Question 1, do I appear as somebody loving or do I appear as somebody to avoid? Am I the person you want to go to even when conflict is happening between one another? Or are you just flying straight away from me because I just can't be somebody to be around when there's an issue to tackle? Is what I'm doing working for the betterment of the relationship? Or could it be the case that we're too focused on us and what we want to fix in ourselves, what we want to address, what we want to change? Is it kind of like leaning towards one way or the other? Question 3, what negative qualities am I expressing? So we all have things about ourselves where some things surface when we're not too in our logical side of the brain and more on the emotional side of the brain. When those negative qualities start to surface, what negative qualities am I expressing in times of conflict? Any questions?
How do you help people become more self-aware or get more understanding of maybe it's not always this person or these people at my workplace and look more of have more of a, like intrusive thought process, look at things internal instead of external. Like, some people they be thinking they up here, but realistically, it's like maybe you're the one that's causing the problem.
You gotta, and like we talked about change, it's this, not this. And so when we look at people who aren't so self-aware, if we're not ourselves, we gotta just catch ourselves before we get to a point, when we're at the point, and then if we can't get there before, then after. So what does that look like? I got a trigger for wet socks. I hate wet socks. I hate stepping on wet floors. That bothers me so much. And then it's like, that's your trigger. If you're not, but then it's like, okay, if you're one of those people that's like, I can't control it, you can, but let's say you can't. I can't control it. Okay, I'll take that back. It kind of depends on trauma and all that stuff. So I'd take that back like 75%. It's like, okay, you feel yourself getting a little, you're a little itchy. It's like you feel like cursing. At that point, you got to be like, okay, think the opposite of whatever is kind of going on, whatever philosophy, whatever religious concepts or quotes, whatever that is. Those techniques that can help your emotion regulate, have we talked about before with the breathing and the mantras and so on. What are those things that help you kind of get back to where you can be the best yourself, And if you understand your triggers, down to the T. I know I hate bathroom floors being wet. You walk into a bathroom already having in your mind that it's probably going to be wet. It's like, you know what? My sock is wet now. It is what it is. I can live with it, even if I don't like it. It's like, it's all right. if you're that person right now where you got to kind of like address it after, just kind of process why you're having these emotions when the bathroom floors, you know, is it that serious? What can I do in the future to kind of mitigate?
I think too, the other hard part is when you try to like, not in a bad way, but try to point out, for lack of better words, the flaws. My daughter, she likes blasting her iPad, so like I try to let her know like, hey, play this a little loud. Meanwhile, she's saying like, oh, we're talking too loud. Then over time, just trying to help her understand, like, hey, I understand you want to hear what you got going on your iPad, but you understand people are also around you. We're talking louder because you got it turned up. Over time, she just realized herself, like, maybe I just grab my headphones. And she'll even say, like, hey, I don't want to disturb nobody, so I'm putting my headphones on. It's like, all right, cool. But it's different with adults now. I'm going to say my wife. She like leaving, so like, the toilet seat, that is the actual seat, right? So she always leaves not the seat, but the top part up. So like the toilet bowl's exposed. I'm clumsy, so I drop stuff. So in that situation, like, how do you address stuff like that where it's like, just put the lid down, you know what I mean? Because I don't want to drop something. But then I want to look at myself, it's like, how can I be less clumsy?
That's where we apply some dear man. I know that you prefer to have the seat up for convenience. You just do what you got to do. I understand that. But on my end, I'm a little clumsy. I put the phone on the counter thing here, and then I'm washing my hands, my elbow slips, boom, it's in the toilet. I gotta grab a glove or whatever, and I'm fishing. Like it sucks that I have to do that, and I'm working on it. But I'd appreciate if you just close the toilet. I know it's an extra step, but it would really help me if you did that, and I'd be easier to deal with. I'd be a much more calm person. And you kind of follow that dialogue where you address what happened. You acknowledge them and validate their experience, but you also come to the point where it's like, here's what's happening with me. These are my emotions. The result is this. It would just help me be the best self in these moments if you just close the toilet seat. It's just a small thing. It's the way we approach dialogue, and it's not necessarily which session 2 is about. So next week, it's more about the tools to kind of get to the point where we can talk about X, Y, and Z. This is more about building the mind and rewiring our brains to where we can use the tools. Because I find that sometimes it's like, I can tell you to say this and that, but then if you're popping off at the mouth 2 seconds after you just gave that whole speech, everything's out the window. Character quality is what we're trying to adjust here. And then we'll get to the rest of it later. Yes.
So as you were talking about, like, explaining to him, like, how to communicate, what will make him trigger, I guess, or will make him, like, kind of get upset at what she does, that brought me back to, like, something that happened at me at work. And it was something that someone said that triggered me. And I'm like, why did that make me mad? And I didn't know how to, because it kept triggering me, like something that kept triggering me when that person said certain things. And I didn't know how to, like, communicate it to that person that, hey, what you're saying, I don't like it. Like, because they're my boss, so I'm like, I don't know how to, without saying it in a way that will come off as, me, not being mean, but will come off in a different way that I don't mean it to come off in. And so by you explaining it like that, I'm like, okay, that helps me to communicate my feelings, or like how I feel about something that someone said to that person. And I guess it just takes like a 5-minute like conversation. Sometimes we make things so hard because we don't know how to communicate our feelings to other people.
Yeah. Precisely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Okay. We're running up on time, but I'm going to try to, I got a lot more, but we'll try to get through. Okay. There are bridges I wish to cross again. People are much more valuable than our temperament. One of my biggest regrets is becoming or doing what I did not like in other people. you lose a piece of yourself that you might spend a lifetime trying to regain. And these quotes are hitting more on, just the value of humanity and trying to be the best we are without reverting or being like the very thing that you just despise. And at some point in our lives, we've all kind of hit that wall in one way or another, and we're paying for the effects of it today. So we all have rules that are spoken and unspoken. Why we hate them? Because they limit our freedom, authenticity, you feel smothered. If you feel like a NASCAR driver and you see a red light, that might be a trigger. You're like, oh my goodness, I just want to go 50. But without rules, we hurt each other. Surprises, there's no guidelines to build relationships, miscommunication. So you're more authentic, you can express more without rules. But why we love rules? We raise trust, the quality of connection, we prevent damage. Now what if the rules are broken? All right, we try again. But through experience and agreement, we can guide ourselves to develop the greatest relationships. Honest and transparent communication is essential for any human connection to thrive. A codependent person is someone who has let other people's behaviors affect them, and who is obsessed with controlling the other person's behavior. And I brought up codependency because it's, we feel safe with being the person that can hold it down and, be the person that's like, I don't know, ride or die. But it comes with some risks too. The caring of you makes me the hero of your story rather than you. The caring of you is more about me stabilizing something that doesn't feel right about something inside of me. Codependent is a rational dynamic where we source safety from someone or something outside of ourselves to the expense of our own needs, sense of self, and overall well-being. The compulsion to be overly responsible for the decisions, feelings, and outcome of other people or others in your life. We got to watch out for where we talk about control. What is exactly driving you to make decisions for people about their life, about them? Because this is often a problem with ladies. I'm dealing with guys who are kind of working to be a better man someday, but it's a little rough right now. And the other way around too. But you can kind of look at this and be like, what am I sourcing externally? By doing or by having somebody codependent upon me, is this validating to me? Is this where I feel safe? Is this where I feel am I worthy of love and so on and so forth? From whom or what? Relationship. Am I doing this for, sex, money, beauty, social media? And what expense is my, this codependence kind of hidden? And so when we don't apply this stuff, alienation happens, dissatisfaction happens, resentment comes, there's hopelessness. It can be a part of it. Doubt about the relationship, there's lost, positive forms of intimacy, negative expectations, avoid conflict. Such and such topic becomes taboo because we just can't talk about it. That's what we want to avoid. And so, the path forward, when we talk about working on ourselves, when we talk about working on ourselves for relationships and whatever that means, this is the work.